Right.
Okay, it is time to start our meeting. We are going to have, it is February 12th, 2025, 6 p.m., and this is the Tokerville City Planning Commission meeting. And we are going to begin tonight with our Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Haymore.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Either way. And the opening prayer will be by Commissioner Harrison.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for the opportunity we have to gather together tonight for this planning commission for the meeting for the city of Tokerville. We all have a shared love for our community. We're grateful for it. We're grateful for each other and for our individual roles in maintaining our community. We ask that thy spirit will be with us in this meeting and we'll be able to make wise decisions. And these things we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Any declarations or disclosures of conflicts from any commission members? Okay. Have you had a chance to look over the agenda order? And I will take a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda order.
Okay.
I second.
Okay. And a vote? Do we have to vote? Yeah, vote.
Aye.
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 Okay. Did you all have a chance to review the minutes from January 8th? And did anyone see anything that we need to change?
No.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes from the January 8th planning commission meeting.
I second it.
Okay, and a vote?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right, moving right along. I don't have anything to report. Do any of you commissioners have anything to report? No? Okay. Planning and zoning, we'll go to Emily then.
Okay. We've got a couple ordinances still being reviewed. The building height definition, we're just working out some kinks on that one and we'll bring it back as soon as it's done. We may update some bonding requirements just to come into compliance with state code. That's in the subdivision code. Wasn't added in there correctly the first time, as far as we can tell. So we're just going to make those changes.
Okay.
We're going to look at our commercial site plan requirements. Just as more commercial interest is coming in, we want to make sure that's buttoned down. And then the subdivision submittal policy, just finishing up adding some things to that before we bring it back to council for approval.
Okay.
And the dog control ordinance, which will go straight to council as well. Still updating our land use applications for subdivisions, preliminary and final plat, simple subdivision, and then just doing some application process reviewing for the grading permit, just so that's a little smoother for the applicants. We also are working on a Firelight MPDO modification. Val came to that work meeting last week, and it sounds like we're going to have another work meeting at the city council meeting next week. We're going to ask planning commission members to come so that the attorneys can kind of get you up to speed with that development agreement and the policies we're going to make moving forward for any modifications to it. So we haven't exactly decided on a time for that, if it'll be before the meeting or during the meeting, but I'll let you know as soon as possible, probably tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll send out a text.
And some of these changes won't just be for, this is to our ordinance, or not changes, but to help us understand how to apply the ordinance. Because we don't just have just one MPDO in Tokerville, there's a couple of them.
Yeah.
And so in the future, other ones as well, not specifically only to Firelight.
Right. The purpose of the meeting will be to put forth a policy and explain how to implement it. And you'll also have a chance to ask any questions that you have so that you can be clear on how to implement it moving forward.
Okay, good.
I'll send out an email with the MPDO and the development agreement, so you can kind of do some reading on that first. I'll put the city code in there. I think it'll be helpful to just have a little background on it so you don't just get thrown into it and not understand kind of what's happening. Yeah, because
Yeah,
we're in the
great.
weeds quite a bit with it.
Yeah. And it's been a few years since we created that,
Looked
so,
at it, yeah.
and everyone is new since then.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
I did go to the Dark Sky Summit. It was nice. One of the speakers wasn't there, but the rest of them did a great job. They hope to do many more. She sent out a survey and asked if anyone wanted to be involved in planning them, so they had a lot of interest on that. It was really mostly just to raise awareness and answer questions about Dark Sky. A lot of people from the audience were from other municipalities, but some were just members of the public, so that was nice to see.
Oh,
There's a pretty good turnout, probably 50 people. Stargazing Zion was there. One of the rangers from Zion National Park was there. And then an employee from Cedar Breaks and SUU. And they just talked about the services they have. So some of it's private, some of it's open to the public. Pretty cool stuff. And Alan Eastman was there from Dark Sky, Utah. And I put some of their slides in here because they were pretty cool. This is a study that Utah State University is doing on the impact of dark skies and mental health. So they're looking for people to join the study if anybody's interested. I can send you that info. Sounds pretty cool. And then they just showed some interesting stuff. This was the dark sky gentleman. He showed these. So some myths and reality. You can go to the next one. So this was, he did some interactive stuff there. It says in this picture to find the intruder. And there's a lot of light glare and light trespass in this picture. If you go to the next one, all he does is block the glare and then you can see the person standing there.
Wow.
Just to kind of show. Same thing here. A lot of people think that you have to have bright lights to protect your property, but if you have motion sensors, things like that, it can be even more effective sometimes because of the startle effect. This is a similar one. That's a dark sky compliant light and light on the other side with a lot of trespass. And there's a person standing on both sides of that garage, but you can only see the one over there on the left,
Yeah.
which is pretty interesting. And this kind of shows the reality of good outdoor lighting, he said. What and where you need it is important. Only using as much as you need. Thinking about the color and not just where the light shines. And then when you need it is important too. It doesn't always have to be on. They showed a slide here from a telescope in Reno and then a telescope in Great Basin National Park of the same star.
Yeah. Wow.
And you can see on the light map on the other side, on the left there is all the light pollution in Reno. And then Great Basin National Park is circled in red there. Which is quite a bit less light pollution.
Wow.
Yeah. Thanks. So it was neat.
Yeah.
I think our ordinance is really good. Yeah. And we have a few changes to make to it tonight, but nothing substantial. Everything else is already, I think we're set in stone. But I think enforcement is just the biggest issue that we need to get past.
Well, that was good that you went to that and could look at our ordinance and go, okay, we're there, we're good.
Yeah.
How can we let the community know about it better? Because I've spoken to several people that didn't even know we had a dark sky ordinance.
Yeah. I think if they do more of these events, we can try to publicize it.
Yeah.
We could even have guest speakers come or events. I suggested in the survey that like a guided star tour would be cool, where they could invite the public to do it. To do it by groups, it's pretty expensive if you go with just a few people, but if we could do it as a big group, that would be really fun.
So if you ever want to let somebody know where it is in our ordinance, it's our outdoor lighting ordinance, not our dark, we don't call it dark sky, we call it outdoor lighting.
Outdoor
So-
lighting ordinance. Okay.
Yep. And we'll talk about that tonight. And it's just like Emily was saying, some very minor changes for enforcement reasons.
That's all I've got, unless you have any questions.
I apologize. My screen wasn't open and I don't know the password. So,
I will let you know that last
You're up there.
night when our power went off and everything, Ray Bench just called me tonight and somebody
It's okay.
went in and stole all of his equipment for the radio station and everything right at the top of his tower.
What?
Over $20,000 worth. He got hit last night
Oh, no.
Wow.
when all the power was off. So they were watching, they were listening, and they went in and stole everything.
You're kidding me.
Wow.
Where's this located?
Right at the top of Shangri-La, where just before you turn and go down.
Just before you drop into his
Yeah.
driveway.
He's got the tower, he's got the radio station for the city,
That's
and he's got the communication system that we have for air all over.
Yeah.
It's part of our safety, actually.
Yeah.
All that
And
it is.
nothing's insured because they won't insure it because it's not its a home. So we have crime here. And
Did he file a police report?
Oh, he did. The police report and everything, but they
Wow.
professionally came in and just wiped him out.
That's,
Are there any leads at all?
What's that?
Do we have any leads at all or anything to point to who might have done it?
No, they were just asking. I went and checked my place, but my place is down quite a bit off the main.
Yeah.
And we had lights at 3:00 in the morning. We have battery backup, everything. He had battery backup and the whole works, but his cameras, it went down after an hour and a half when the power went off for some reason. His went down. So they knew how to cut his off and things like that. So,
wow.
It's too bad.
That's
That
too
was
bad.
premeditated for sure.
yeah. So-
Yes. Well,
So I guess the thing is, next time they keep on playing and cutting us off for 5 hours, maybe we better start driving around and, or get extra sheriff and stuff if they're knowing enough that they're coming in and,
I did notice they kept it off for regular people that don't have backup like us, right?
they do.
They kept it off the full 5 hours, and usually they don't.
Yeah.
Usually they finish up early.
if they,
So they actually, just to let you know a little bit about that last night, they were making the connection that will, it's the, from down at this power station there in Laverne, just off of, down the hill from the Tokerville Estates. And they were tying all of that in through Bringhurst Lane as far as they could. They didn't make it all the way as far as they wanted to, but that's why they were fighting the wind, the weather, a few things like that. So it was a long night for them, but they weren't quite finished, but they still just turned the power back on because they had told everybody they would. And so, sometimes they'll be finishing a couple, 3-4 hours when things just go super smoothly. And other times they'll take that whole time if they need it.
So will they need another power outage to finish?
They will probably have another couple within the next probably 3 to 5 months. So,
so a little nitbit, the day before we had a glitch and the power went off for about an hour. And that was from here to Bloomingville. So I worked in the temple today and the temple came and they shut down everything in the temple and it was cold when they came in. They didn't realize it. So when they started the baptism, the first baptism, it was at 61 degrees. It's usually at 92. So they didn't catch that. So that poor little boy
Cold plunge.
got to go through. So they learned at the temple that they have to check everything too
Yeah.
to start because
Yeah.
it kicks
Wow.
everything off.
wow. Okay, Emily, anything else? Okay, Darren.
So we'll start with just what's going on with the engineering projects in Tokerville right now. As you can see from that photo right there across the freeway, I-15, you have the Boulder Ridge project is moving dirt. They're going to be going for several months to possibly a year before you'll start seeing really any formation of roads and things, just because they have so much material they have to move. They are still on schedule with their schedule that they've submitted. So we'll see how that all comes. They have not yet posted bond to start putting in infrastructure as of yet. So they are just doing grading.
Yeah.
So exactly where is that on that picture?
It's right up at just across if you go under the freeway, like you were going to go to St. George,
Yeah.
you just keep going straight and you would hit that road will extend up into that disturbed area. You can see where the vegetation is removed. So the next one there on the right, on Anderson Junction Road, just across the way, just to the north there of the Sapp Brothers truck stop, you can see IME Automation. I've talked with them today, asked them where they are with their construction plans as far as the infrastructure and such as well. They have a meeting tomorrow with their engineer to finish it up. When they originally got their grading permit, which they can get a grading permit, start moving dirt without finished construction plans as per our ordinance, they did not realize that they needed a bunch more things designed by the power. And so Rocky Mountain Power and their engineer have been working back and forth to ensure that they have proper voltage and transformers and such. So we'll probably start to see something here in the next few weeks with them on our joint utility committee. That's been a little bit slow lately. Not much is happening. The phase 3 of Firelight just got finished, and that's really where we're stopped. I think we're just trying to get the Parkway operational, so we're going that way. Kind of an update on Sapp Brothers. Sapp Brothers, the UDOT has done their final review on the stoplight. They're hoping that things will go there. There was a actual miscommunication with the power or the gas company. The gas company went and installed a gas line right where the middle of the pole for that one mast arm for the stoplight. So they've had a little bit of a setback on that. They're still shooting. They've got a few signs around that say they're going to be opening in fall. I think that's a possibility. I just wonder about the stoplight and how quick they can get that up. That's working very quickly. We did also a reconstruction meeting on the reservoirs. The Washington County Water Conservancy District is going to start grading and moving dirt for the down in to put the pond liner, if you want to call it the pond, the reservoir liner. Can you go to that next slide? This is the different thing. Anyway, the reservoir there, they'll be doing a lot of grading here in the next three months. You'll see that, and that last slide, you'll see the road there that they're going to be that's their haul road they'll be using to take the dirt. Can you go back one again? Sorry. So you see the big field there across from IME. That is Water District's property. They are going to be grading that area to take material down to the for the reservoir dam. So you're going to be seeing that. They've got a big pad, and then when they're done with it, they'll start selling the property to developers and different things such as that. So they'll have more of a finished pad there for development. Okay, let's go to that next one. So this right here, the contractor, Jed Homer, has started to make headway on getting that north side or northeast side of the existing road there ready to start doing the tie-in on the north end of the parkway. They're going to do a temporary tie-in for a little bit right there. You can see where they've put, right that area there. You can see that they put road base down. They're going to widen the asphalt through there, and then they're going to slow traffic down, much like they did on the south end, except for they're going to go even slower. They're going to go down to a 35 mile an hour is what they're proposing through that area for a short time, and to get people kind of used to, hey, this is going to change. So that, because right now it's at 60 miles an hour, and they flip that over real quick, people are going to really have a hard time slowing down to the 50 mile an hour or 55 miles an hour for the parkway speeds. But that's the north tie-in. Let's go to the next slide. Just another photo of that, those types of things. Continuing down let's go to the next slide. So
who's going to do the T-stop?
That's Judd
new road
Palmer.
will be the T-stop, and the main road will still go flow?
Yeah, so go back one, I'm sorry. So right there, you can see the big pile of dirt. That'll be the T-stop coming into it. So the flow, so where that big truck is and those cars, that'll all be pulverized and gone when it's finished. And so you'll just head on down where that black truck is on the left on the parkway. And that'll be your thoroughfare road. And where you see the dirt coming up there, that'll be the T-stop.
So are they gonna do that now, temporary too?
Not right this very minute, but they will have stop signs for a short time, yes. Yeah,
And they're gonna take that berm so you can see the traffic coming down where that black truck is, where it's blocked right now, if you got a T-stop there?
yeah, well,
You're gonna have your,
yeah, you're gonna be at level, you're gonna be at asphalt, or you're gonna be at the pavement level when you come up to that T-stop. You'll be at the same elevation as the asphalt right there, so you'll be able to see both ways. And you are on the outside of the curve there. So it's always a better sight distances that way. So that next photo is you've seen these are the big vaults that we're talking about. So this is just beyond that vault. There is the new pump house where they're going to be pumping water to up to the new 2 million gallon tank. So they've got the infrastructure, or they've got the most of the infrastructure. They've got the vaults, the concrete vaults, and the transformer switches on top, and they've got most of the wire pulled through these. A little while back, the UDOT came in and said, "Hey, let's take a second look at these. We think they're a little too close to the pavement of the new parkway, and some of them were, so they've had to move them back about 20 feet." And so it's been a little extra cost. So anyway, so the next one is the sand pocket. You might have heard us talking about the sand pocket. This is halfway through, just south of what we called the old racetrack.
Yep.
As they were digging through there, they hit an area that was just this sugar sand type of stuff. And it just kind of, so all of that dirt and sand you see right there, they were what the geotech suggested, just on a Reader's Digest kind of fix, or not fix, but explanation is basically they're placing big basalt rocks, the big rocks, into that sand and digging that out. So they dug that out, and when they started digging it out, it's almost kind of like a balloon. All that sand came out just like that. They didn't dig any of that out. It just all flowed out like water almost. And so they've now put those rocks in there to mitigate that so that the sand won't come back out. And they've also put what they call a polymer that connects the sand and the top overhang part. So it's worked well. There's just a couple more photos. I think I took too many of these, but you can kind of see there how they're just pushing it in. The rocks are pushing into the sand. And then the next one's just up in the air, better view.
they're putting some kind of erosion protection there too, so when.
Yeah, the erosion protection is
That polymer.
that polymer. Yep, at the top. It's like it looks like a bunch of spray foam that you spray in the wall for insulation, but it has very high density polymer. They actually use it to lift houses that are sinking, or sidewalks. You see sidewalks when they go in and drill a hole, and they put that's the same type of thing. So it connects the two together. And UDOT and the geotechs have basically done all that. So all those rocks that you see there on the left side of the shoulder, all of that got put into that sandy area and pushed back in there.
So they're not gonna cut any more off the top of that? They're just gonna
Not at this point.
sock some boulders in there?
No,
That makes sense.
not at this point. It's kind of a big hard crest on the top.
Yep.
So as long as the sand doesn't come out, then we're okay.
Yep.
So what's that next one? This is the last slide, is basically that wet spot everybody's been talking about. It appears, we're not sure if it's going down or more, but it's because of the temperature changes. We were out there yesterday. It looks all white around the outside edge of it, and it looks smaller, but I'm going to start taking photos on a weekly basis and see if it is getting smaller they'll stand at the same spot and take the photo. And we'll just watch and see. But we actually did find a water pipe that was, the valve had been turned off, but they didn't cap the end of it, so it was leaking ever so slightly. They'd also tested the dirt, and because they thought that it might be septic tanks that were leaching out into it. It doesn't have any sewage in it, so it is definitely some sort of a cleaner water. So that didn't have chlorine in it, but so
It was probably a natural
we'll
source.
see. We hope not.
Right.
Yeah, we hope it's not. We hope it's not Tokerville Springs too. So yeah, we're just watching it for right now. The geotechnical engineer, he's not real concerned with it. He says, I'm not worried about what it's doing. If it was up higher, he said he would probably have a little more concern, but he says to him, he said it appeared to be getting smaller. So we'll take his recommendation. And really, that's kind of about it that I have for right now.
I have a question. What's going on with the park, the Westfield Park?
As far as, so right,
Nothing seems to be going on.
well, Ben's actually probably got a little more information on that because he and JD have been talking about it.
Yeah, we have been. So Westfield Park update. There's not a lot going on. We have very limited funds to finish the park with. So we've been trying to do it on a budget, limited budget. And basically we're kind of trying to piecemeal the vendors together, asking for donations. Just kidding. We're not asking for donations from vendors, but essentially just trying to squeak it out with the budget we have left. We've got a grant opportunity that we're going to be applying for. So hopefully we'll get working on that here within the next few months.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have you at our meeting.
So, and you're seeing also, I guess I should say, you're seeing the power that's getting rerouted on the cut, coming up the existing road there. They're working as quickly as they can to get that put in. We're thinking probably the first couple of weeks in March. That's our best case scenario at this point. They've got to get the TDS has some communication lines on that power pole that's up there on that north side. So that they're working pretty quickly on that. But that's what all of that construction is that you're seeing on the south side right now. And we've got to get that power pole out of the way so that we can cut the north side back.
How soon before the north side starts getting cut?
As soon as
Best
the power
case.
pole is probably best case is probably mid-March, mid to end of March.
And then were they thinking 4 months? At one time
They said 100 working days or something to that effect, but we'll see what that happens. It took a little bit longer than that on the south side, and they got just as much to move on the north side. So
Maybe by fall, huh?
yeah, and then it also too, it depends when they start getting in there and they find more that they need to blast a little more because there's more basalt. Once they get the alluvial, what they call alluvial material off the top of the basalt, that's the softer dirt. They get down to that basalt, then they can find out as they take a first couple blasts, they can get a pretty good grasp on how quickly they can get it out of there.
Are they going to cut in the same pitch as the south side, basically?
Yep, they have the same pitch. It'll be a little bit different design because they will have a little step in it on that north side.
Okay.
So
Okay. All right. Because it's nice to know these things because I get asked all the time and I'm sure the rest of the commissioners
no,
do.
and just like I say, both Emily and Ben and I are here.
Yeah.
We're at work
Yeah,
every day. We're open. We're here.
yeah. Well, usually it's
Unless we're
just
on vacation.
just a casual question. It's not anything.
No, but anybody that wants to know, please ask. And
Yeah.
if you have any questions, don't feel bad about calling us too.
Yeah.
Because,
Thanks.
we're here.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate all you guys do.
thank
So
you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, on to our business items. E1, discussion and possible recommendation on Tokerville City's annexation policy plan. We went over this plan in our December meeting. Did you want to say something about this, Emily?
Yep, so we went through the content in our December meeting. We noticed all the affected entities surrounding municipalities and special service districts, and we didn't receive any comment from anybody else. So We just have one last public hearing with you guys, and then we need a recommendation to take it to city council.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I don't
Kayla.
have anything further to say on this. I mean, last time we reviewed it to make sure it just complied with code, unless you guys have any specific questions.
And there were only a couple of things that we even, that the changes were already made, basically. So unless someone wants to discuss this further, I'm going to open the public hearing. Todd or Ben? No? Okay. We're going to close the public hearing on this. And do we need any more discussion? Anyone? Before I take a motion? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I recommend approval to adopt the annexation policy plan with as is.
The changes that we made.
Yeah, as is.
I second that motion.
Okay, and a vote?
Aye.
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 Okay, so approved. And we recommend it to city council, right?
Correct.
Okay, on to business item E2, discussion and possible recommendation on ordinance 2025.XX, amending and restating 10, Chapter 24, Section 4 of the Tocqueville City Code, updating lighting curfews and exterior lighting standards. Emily?
Yep, so we can pull up the red line if you want to see it in real time, but I kind of hit the highlights here. We added a start and clarified the end time for lights, so it just said that they had to be turned off at 11 p.m. But we've had some problems with people turning them back on when it's still dark. So we just put 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. for enforcement.
Yep.
And then some other changes, most of them were made by Kayla in there, are just clarifying some terms. Sports lighting, she changed to sport court and sport playing field lighting. Changed to public utility company instead of Rocky Mountain Power. And then clarified that low voltage systems are 50 volts or less. I removed the holiday lighting from the exemptions because it did have specific rules for holiday lighting higher up in the ordinance. So we don't want to exempt it if it had already had some limitations to it. And then other small clerical errors like corrections and capitalizations.
Grammatical stuff.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
I have a question about the holiday lighting. Would that include people that have like the permanent lights on their house and they do like different colors, different times of the year? Or is that considered regular house lighting?
That's a good question. I think it said temporary holiday lighting in there and it didn't specify when. So
Okay.
most people use them, I guess if you have
couple
permanent,
neighbors
they
that
use
use
them
them year round. That's why I was wondering.
all the time. I guess it would depend on the bulbs. I think there's requirements in there for the bulb size. So you could look at it in that sense. If they're on all the time, then that's something that should be looked at.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion before we open the public hearing? No? Okay. We will open the public hearing now. Public input is sought on ordinance 2025.XX, an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 24, Section 4 of the Tocqueville City Code, updating lighting curfews and exterior lighting standards. And Todd and Ben, you're the only audience we have. Any questions? Okay, we will close the public hearing then on the lighting. And do we need any more discussion on it?
I actually did have one question. Who's
Okay.
the lighting administrator?
It's
Is that defined earlier? Probably.
It's me mostly, but I work closely with Jason, code enforcement. So the complaints come to him and then we discuss the code. And
So are
then,
you two together the authority?
yeah.
So it's
Yes.
actually.
Do we have a position with that title or should we change it to whatever Jason's position is, code enforcement? Would that be
I think
better?
we'll add it to my job description.
Yeah, well,
Cover it that way.
My concern is just putting a position, if it doesn't exist, I think I'd rather put like your
Planning
position.
and zoning
Yeah,
administrator.
so that'd be the only.
You could think about it. I do work closely with him.
We-
And John
we
does
put
a
in-
lot of the enforcement with the new building permits. So it's a team effort, really.
we put that caveat of as planning and zoning administrator or designee on a
Okay.
few of our other
We
ordinances.
could do that.
That because when I was planning and zoning administrator, we kept putting planning and zoning administrator, and I said, we need to put somebody else in case I'm no longer in this position.
Yes,
And so we put
Yes.
or designee.
or designate.
I think that's a great idea, yeah.
So
I think that would be clearer, because just those two words, when I was reading them, I was like, who is that? And how
Yeah.
does it
Yeah.
do that?
So we could, with that, we could add that to it,
Yep.
send that to city council.
Question. Has it been a problem? And do we get very many complaints? And then let me ask you this. How do we get the word out?
Yeah.
as the
This-
outdoor lighting ordinance?
Yeah.
Yes, it has been it has been a problem. And we are currently, we've been talking about that with everything from our website to word of mouth, but we have had in the past, we've had some bring the people together. The city council's actually talked about that a little bit too, with how to inform the public and help them understand not only just the light, dark sky, but like you were talking about on that other ordinance. I forgot what it was already, but anyway. So I don't know. I'd be open to any suggestions too of how to educate people, because we do put it on our website. We post it on Facebook. We do that periodically throughout the year.
Well, I was just thinking that some of the examples Emily showed with the glare and the dark and stuff. If we're having something or something, you put, this is in compliance, this is not,
Yeah.
and so people can visually, because people don't understand lumias and light.
Yeah. And temperatures and yeah. Right.
I had a thought, because I had a friend who moved here into a new house, and they had picked out their lighting, and then their contractor said, oh, there's a lighting ordinance, and they couldn't use what they had bought and had to get a different one. And I was wondering if that's part of the initial, like, is there a checklist or and maybe that was on the contractor for not educating, but I wondered if we had a little like information sheet like that. This is for you, contractor, and this is for the person that you're building for, so that they get that education too. I don't know if we could make
do have one
a
that-
suggested duplicate copy for them.
It's like a approved lighting or suggested lighting, and it's on every building permit. And so it's something that they have to acknowledge that they've looked at, and it's in our standards and specifications too. It's the same page pulled out of there. So it's something they have to check off when they file for a building permit.
Okay.
Whether the builder files for that and then shows the homeowner or vice versa. I don't know how we
I was just
communicate that.
thinking like when you go to a restaurant and they give you your copy and their copy, like, could we give the contractor 2 copies of that and just write custom, like, owner copy at the bottom so that they know? I mean, they still might just put it in their paperwork pile and not give it to them, but just, it would be a pretty.
It's all
It's
electronic.
electronic.
It's
so that's a
everything's
little-
Oh, it's all
electronic.
electronic?
Yeah, there's not a paper copies of anything anymore. We're all,
Okay, never mind.
But when they have questions, that happened recently. I don't know if it's the same person, but they came in and John and I sat down and showed pictures similar to what I showed today.
Okay.
And it really does help to see those pictures to understand.
yeah.
Before occupancy can be given, is that checked
Yes.
by building inspector, the outdoor
Yeah,
lighting
Inspector,
Yep.
make sure it.
Yeah, he's supposed to, but
before?
yeah. It's like that, we gotta get that equipment though. That
Yes,
Calibrated-
yeah.
calibrated
The
thumb.
calibrated thumb.
the calibrated.
Is that
thumb
too
not
dark,
working.
too light? Yeah.
He's out there during
Who's
the
got
day
the-
most of the time, obviously. So he's just looking at the fixture and how it is manufactured to make sure that it's compliant. But it is hard to tell sometimes unless the light's on and it's dark outside.
Yeah. That's probably something we need to work on and get some things and require. more
Yeah,
so.
because I feel like some of the new construction coming out actually has some pretty aggressive outdoor lighting within the last 2 years. So,
Right up by your house.
yeah,
So if you want to come talk to Jason about it,
Yeah.
then he'd be happy to go out there. He'll go out after.
well, that's why I
dark and
asked if
check.
it was checked off on before occupancy was given, and if it's checked off during daylight hours,
Yeah.
then it would be really hard to get a baseline on how bright something
Right.
is.
And they can also change those lights after they get their CFO. We have no control of if they just change them.
Yeah.
But he is checking that.
Okay.
I know that.
And then I guess one of the other questions is the grandfather clause for those that have been built way before. And because, I mean, I sit on my own mountaintop to get to look at everything, which I love at dark and stuff. But then I see the new house that's way up down the hill that's a beacon that you can see everywhere. And I'm not going to go tell that guy he's got to turn his lights off.
Yeah. That's the problem with
might not
complaint-based enforcement. They are supposed to come into compliance. But unless someone complains about it, we don't have anyone out there knocking on doors, so.
We do have a
watch.
code enforcement officer that will go address it if you make a complaint.
But I've even thought about hosting a thing that people come and look at the stars from my place because it's all, I mean, and then I can see what Laverkin's lighting and Hurricane's lighting. And believe it or not, everybody watches me and knows what color my lights are because all mine are dimmed down with different colors, just on the trees. That's fine. I agree we need a lighting control.
Okay. You done? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I move that we recommend approval of the lighting curfew and exterior lighting standards with clarification for who the light administrator is and who the authority is.
I second it.
Okay, and a vote?
Aye.
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 Okay, cool. Discussion on accessory dwelling units. Emily.
This is a hot topic all over. Yeah. You can go there. Last year's state code was passed that mandates cities to permit internal accessory dwelling units, so like a basement apartment. And we are allowed to prohibit and require certain things. I listed them there. It's a lot to read. Right now, as our code is written, I guess we enforce internal ADUs in terms of whether or not it creates multifamily housing. So if they're renting it to two people who don't own the residence, then that would be multifamily housing. And that's the only way that we enforce it, and that's only if we know about it.
Yeah.
And then external ADUs, we are allowed at the moment, just because we don't have anything that restricts them. We are holding them to our secondary structure setback requirements and building height requirements, and they do require a building permit. But looking at surrounding municipalities and just the talking that's going on, it would be, I think, beneficial to clarify if we do want to allow them, other regulations that we want to look at, like whether or not the owner does have to be living there, or the number of ADUs you can put on your parcel, or the size of your lot if you're going to have one, things like that. So I just want to open the discussion to whether we want to be encouraging them, and if we do, what kinds of things we want to be regulating, or if we just want to kind of leave it as it is now, which is sort of a free-for-all in a way, as long as they have the setback requirements met. We just have building code and fire code that could stop it from getting out of control, but that's it. We don't have any extra requirements for parking or things like that. The only thing that we regulate would be nightly rentals, and you can't do those in a detached structure. So that we don't allow as it stands now. So I just don't know what the feelings are about that, and if there's anything you'd like to add to code, or if you want to leave it as is. And if so, if you have any thoughts on any of these things. These are things that I pulled out of some of the codes I had on your agenda item sheet. I really liked Hurricanes, Santa Clara's, St. George's, and Washington's. They're all very simple and straightforward. But but they cover all of these things in enough detail.
So correct me if I'm wrong there. In our code, we don't specifically say the word dwelling, and we call it an accessory building
Accessory structure. I believe.
structure. Well, it's
And
two
right now-
different parts of it.
things.
Yeah, two different
So
parts call it two
we don't
different things.
regulate external ADUs. It's implicit that they're not allowed in residential zones because you can only have one dwelling. So like if somebody tried to create an external ADU right now, we would say you can't have that because it's not an accessory structure. Somebody's going to be living in it. So I would say that right now they're technically prohibited, but somebody might not know that right off the bat. It's not obvious.
Yeah.
Are
As-
RVs considered external ADUs?
Yeah,
No,
that's your
Wait,
whole.
I think that
I'm
would be a whole
confused.
different ballgame. So
As we've been interpreting it, they are allowed because only in the agricultural zone do we have a density maximum, which is one single family dwelling. We don't have that in our residential zone, so we have them. They are being built and approved. Only a few, but
Okay.
I think one this year and a couple were last year and the year before.
Okay, I would say that that's interesting to know. I would say that currently, as your code is drafted, they should not be allowed. They
Right.
should not be allowed.
The-
But I think we can make that more clear.
One of those or a couple of those, or say, well, we're going to build a pool house, and nobody's going to live in it, or we're going to build it just for my mother-in-law, she's going to live in it, and that type of thing. So
Yeah,
that's been on two occasions on that we've done.
the way the code is drafted now, I think it's implied that they're not allowed. We can follow after what Hurricane and some other cities have done and just make it more explicit. Like Emily was saying, there's now state law where we can't regulate internal ADUs. So think, so it's a dwelling unit inside a primary dwelling that's being offered for the purpose of rentals for 30 days or longer. But we can regulate the specifics of internal accessory dwelling units. So Emily mentioned like a number of ways that other municipalities are limiting these. I wrote down a few just thoughts I had. So one potential way we could limit internal ADUs is we could limit the number. So if there's no limit on the number, people could theoretically create as many ADUs as they wanted inside a dwelling, which could be problematic. So it might be a good idea to just cap a number, maybe do 2 or 3 or whatever. We could also limit the number of individuals who live in ADUs. There's lists like Emily has up there of potential things that can be regulated with respect to internal ADUs. So just a lot of things to consider.
So when I was reading Hurricane and Santa Clara's, there wasn't anything in there that really specified how many could be in an external
You
ADU.
can regulate that. You don't have to. So that's something you can regulate.
You
is
can
how many
regulate it.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was Washington's that it had to do with like they have a limit of people that can live in one residence.
Yeah, they have a family
I don't know what, like a
defined.
family defined and then the
Yeah.
number and.
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't have that in our code, but we could add it.
Another consideration is whether you want people who want to use their dwelling or want to use an internal ADU to have to obtain a permit or some kind of license. It would be a permitted use, but still you could require them to obtain some sort of permit. Some cities have retained the right to come and inspect the internal ADUs every year or so, to inspect it at the time that it's signed off on as an internal ADU. So these are just other things you could consider requiring.
Washington had a size requirement too.
Yeah, I think
What
it was
is the
1,000
feeling
square
from our
feet.
special services when it comes to the impact in infrastructure? Like emergency services, water, sewer? I mean, those are all relative
So
to being impacted?
yeah,
Aren't those-
sewer would actually create another impact fee, or charge an impact fee for another building.
I don't think.
Not those types of things. They've done it to a couple of them that we've done before. So that they found out there was two structures up there on the Tocqueville Heights. So they've actually charged them I'm sorry, not impact fees. They charge them two monthly bills, like as if it's two separate units.
Is this the one up on Mulberry?
This is up on Tocqueville
Tocqueville
Estates. Heights.
Oh, Tocqueville Heights. Okay.
I've seen
Can't
presentations
those-
about ADUs where they talk about the family size is actually shrinking. So a lot of the argument is that the accessory dwelling unit isn't causing more impact because the infrastructure was already expecting to have more impact. That was just an argument that a presenter, I think a planner, made at a conference I went to.
I think that's probably true in Salt Lake. I don't think it's so true in southern Utah.
Yeah. Ash Creek.
I have a question
like I say,
about the
Ash Creek
impact.
did that.
Yeah. Wouldn't the impact be resolved with each individual permit? In other words, you got to have a building permit for it. So wouldn't it be resolved at that level? Or no?
Wait, for an internal
Like-
accessory dwelling unit.
No,
I don't,
I'm
you
talking
wouldn't
about
necessarily-
I'm talking about
Oh, external. Okay.
external, not internal. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
we'd
Sorry,
have
I
to
guess I
ask.
went off topic, sorry.
Nope.
But
No,
I think they're so different. The external and the internal
Mhm.
are different. We
completely
need to
separate, yeah.
for sure divide it out, but I see a need for external ADUs. I'm a realtor, and just over the last year, it's crazy, you guys, how many properties are offering and advertising that they have an ADU on the property. So I'm surprised if there's a lot of cities saying, if the cities in the area are being strict on it, because there's a lot of properties for sale with ADUs or with,
non-conforming use.
yeah,
external
yeah.
uses.
So
They're all being
and I actually
pretty open to
myself
them.
personally was considering one for either my mother or my mother-in-law, possibly on my own property. And I live on an acre, and I think it's agriculture, residential agriculture on
You
my
are.
street. So,
Yeah.
so this topic interests me personally too. I'd like to learn more about it for sure.
That's something we should think about too, because we would have to change the code for agricultural if we want to. We don't want to decide if we want to have it in just residential zones or agricultural, because a lot of our agricultural is more like residential agriculture. We just don't have
Yeah.
it defined as that.
It's kind of a mix.
So just for clarity, RVs are not underneath ADUs?
No, I do not believe so.
Is there an ordinance that addresses RVs as external ADUs or the use in that?
We have, I know there's people that put RVs in their side yard, and Uncle Joe lives there for 6 months.
Yep.
I know that happens. I just don't know.
In
how-
my view, a dwelling it would be a permanent structure. I just don't view anything that is movable to be a permanent structure.
Okay.
I know that they may appear that way sometimes, depending on what people do to them, but
Yeah.
I think they're
Yeah,
just.
I think right now on the books I don't believe that there's anything that prevents somebody from pulling, Uncle Joe bringing his trailer and connecting it to your house for power and whatever else, water. I don't think we have anything that prohibits that. I don't
Something we
know.
could add if we want to prohibit it or leave it as is if we
Well, I
don't.
know a couple of them that's got 4 of them lined up with family members living in them. It's right on the side and stuff. But I'll let you know, this has been growing and becoming more of a concern, or I don't say problem, but they're also pushing to do the mother-in-law quarters where they can come and build a tiny home right there immediately on your lot. I know personally that I had to deal with single-family mobile home. And then when we went and inspected, they had 27 members living. And they just take mats up and then they put them down. And there was no way for us to get them out. You can't control it. I know that this is going to happen more and more, like you say.
Yep.
I know already at some of my other homes that when you go in there, the cost of these condos and apartments, they change the garage into bedrooms and stuff, and there's 7 families living in there.
Yeah.
So it's just going to happen more and more. And yes, we're going to have to put some controls so you can monitor. Yes,
Enforcement.
the impact on the sewer and water. When you have 7 families living in there in one, and you can just count the cars that are parked outside
Yeah.
that know what's happening. So it's going to have to be addressed, detached, attached, RVs, everything's going to have to be addressed.
And better to do it now than later, so that we're prepared.
Well, you got to have something in place so when
Yeah.
it becomes so bad
Yeah.
that you can't,
Oh.
then you got to come in and say, well, you have no ordinance against it.
And we were wondering if you guys had any interest in us addressing this. So
Yeah.
this is what this whole discussion's
Yeah.
about.
I
So-
think we
And I
should.
think when it's done well and done right, it serves, it actually solves some problems, some housing problems and concerns, and helps certain people too, so. depending-
It's considered a best practice for affordable housing. Like, all accessory dwelling units are considered a best practice because of their low impact and the low usage of land resources and water resources.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're all really interested in it and would love to get something drafted that addresses it well in both types.
Okay.
Mom and dad are coming back home when they're getting old. And so we got to take care of our elderly. We got to take care of our
Our young,
marrieds.
Yeah, and the young
marrieds.
adult, they're two of the most
afford
underserved
to get a
populations
house.
for housing in
sure.
our county,
Yeah.
is the ones who could benefit from the
And
accessory.
I deal
dwelling
with
units.
this every day. I work with first-time home buyers. They cannot find a place to live in our county that they can afford. Young couples who have good credit, they're both working hard, they're saving their money, and they can't afford to get into a house.
And they can't find a rental either, and 92% of renters in the state of Utah can't afford to buy. But if we did have more accessory dwelling units and got more on the rental market, then they can find smaller places that they can save to buy a house later. So, yeah, I'm excited about this. I would love to get something drafted.
I
that-
think we need to
Works.
look outside the box too and look, so that we can look at it.
Any thoughts on zoning or any of these other restrictions that stand out, or do you just want me to draft it kind of as tight as possible and then we can take things out as necessary?
I think parking would be a quick one.
Okay.
Of being able to limit or to monitor.
I think for internal, like the state allows you to require them one off-street parking space.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's something that.
And
we could
two
add
different
to.
cities had, I think it was 9 by either 18 or 19 feet. That was what they.
not our nightly rentals, we require additional off-street parking. So
Right.
it's important.
Square footage of the lots is something that I'm thinking about, especially with Firelight going in and everything. Some of the cities had 8,000 square foot lots was, the minimum, or I think another one had 10,000. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on if we want it to be R112 or higher or something like that.
Yeah, I think you got 10, 12,000 square foot lots.
Yeah.
10,000 is pretty small.
Yeah. it is.
Yeah.
You got to have it so
Agreed.
you have the room. Also, remember, just like an apartment and everything, you got people living there and kids living there and stuff. You have to have place for them to play and get outside. And just like your apartments and your condos requirements, you got to have so much open space.
One of them
Sorry.
said it couldn't take more than a third of the backyard.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked that because that would leave a little open space if it's on an existing lot.
I like the ownership part of it, that people have skin in the game.
Yes.
I
There
like
was,
that too.
one of them said family. It was really broad stroke family. And I was like, well, does that mean immediate family? Does that mean
Yeah.
brother to the mother to the, down the road? Oh, yeah, we're family.
Co-single and
Yeah,
no
we're seventh
affinity.
cousins. We're family. Like, where does that really line? So I think that one has a,
I think Hurricane City has a pretty broad definition of family because I interviewed Tony Ferran about it one time. And it was, I can't remember what it was, but it was for this purpose of like, how many people can we have in a residence?
So the ownership thing, I think, is that you can't sell it. Most people would say that you can't sell it separately because that would cause
Yeah,
subdividing
you-
of the
you
lot and
wouldn't be
things like
able
that.
to,
Yeah. The occupancy, I think, is important too, because then at least the primary owner is living in either the ADU or the house, however they decide to do it.
Yes.
And you don't have
Yeah, that's
two
important.
renters on the property too.
I agree.
Yeah, it says, I liked this I think these are your notes where it says that we may impose certain regulations, including, and it's the last one, the prohibition of IADUs in dwellings not occupied as the owner's primary residence. So I would like to include that if we can.
Also, it's happening that people are renting out their bedrooms and then they're sub-renting out the renters are sub-renting out the bedroom too, because they can't afford it and things, and then they're sharing the kitchen
Sublease, yeah.
and the bathroom, so,
We don't regulate long-term rentals, so I don't think there's anything we could do
yeah.
on that end, because how
I
could you know?
Yeah, I think we could limit the number of people in an internal accessory dwelling unit as far as, yeah, that's a tough one. And then also just making sure that it's clear that they have to rent it for 30 days or longer. Those are really the two main ways we could address that. Yeah, in terms of people renting out rooms to more people, that would fall under just capping the number of people that could use an ADU. I think that's the way to capture that.
And we're in a market where we have the snowbirds coming down and renting for 3-4 months and then leaving. That is what we have became and things. And so that's happening more and more, and that's more than the long-term rental. It's more than 30 days and stuff like that. So, which it happens, and it's going to happen, and it's all around us. So,
What is a typical number cap that they do on internal ADUs?
So typically, like HUD, do you know what I'm talking about when I say HUD? HUD, okay. HUD has released guidelines that should be no less than 2 persons per bedroom. So if there's 2 bedrooms, then 4 people in the ADU. If there's 1 bedroom, 1 person, or sorry, 2 people per ADU.
And it's based on bedrooms?
They've based it on bedrooms.
So when does a family room become multiple bedrooms?
Well, it gets a little tricky there. So if you just have bedrooms, that's one thing. But if you introduce like a living area and a kitchen, then there's a little formula they have. But essentially, like you might increase it by 1 or 2 if you have this extra living area for people to be in. So up to you guys on how you want to do that. But
and it is
those are
right.
some background guidelines.
And they're based, I've had a lot of rentals that I kept it at the HUD on purpose low. So it met the HUD requirements, so they could qualify and things. And there, how many bedrooms, and then how much you can charge for each bedroom and stuff, and what the total rent can be. And HUD's a good place to go back and look at that, because they're a lot lower than what you think. I mean, you have to keep. I mean, you wouldn't qualify now with what the rents are now with HUD, but I did that on purpose on quite a few of my homes, 3 of them. On purpose.
And I think we should consult the fire department too and see if they have upper limits that they're,
Yeah.
or guidelines to help.
Okay,
I do that right now with my grandkids.
thank you.
Rents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important that we are updating our ordinances. So anytime anyone sees something, let's ask questions and bring it up. In fact, that brings us to our next one, discussion. E4, discussion on livestock in residential zones.
Need more chickens.
And the reason that this comes up is not about chickens.
More pigs.
There is a lot in a residential area, neighborhood, where the people have brought in horses, and it doesn't appear that they are going to build a house. They bought this lot to put horses on. And it's in a it's in a residential area. And it's like, I don't think that that is right. They have no vested interest in keeping the smell down, keeping the dust down, because they don't live there.
Do the
But-
horses, is there a barn or a structure on there for the animals?
Yeah, a lean-to,
Oh,
kind of, for the animals.
Is a property maintained? Or, I mean, is it?
Well, I think the thing that Val's talking about is we have essentially you have it's designated residential, and it's purely 100% agricultural use.
yeah.
So we do allow them in residential based on our care and keeping of livestock
But we don't.
and the acreage, right? But we don't have any requirement that you have to have a dwelling on there. So
You have to live
something we
there.
could consider adding. It is a conditional use, so that also could be added as a condition to each permit you issue. So you could decide if you want to add it to code, or if that's just something you want to keep in mind moving forward if someone applies for a conditional use permit.
We would recommend, if you guys decide that you want to impose like a requirement that a dwelling be there, or maybe that they clean up the manure or any of those things, that it's codified. So that it's in your ordinance, if you
Yes.
want this conditional use, here are the conditions. That would be our recommendation in terms of how to move forward.
And I didn't know specifically who it was, so I didn't look up their conditional use permit. Number 8 in there does say that manure shall be cleaned at least weekly and odor should be controlled. And that usually is also a part of the conditional use permit. So if we had a specific complaint for that one, we could look that up. But it is here,
Yeah.
but it's complaint-based enforcement too, so.
The lot is 3/4, didn't we decide?
Yeah,
We
that's
looked that
3/4
up.
of an acre.
Something like
Yeah.
that. Mhm.
So they've got 3 horses. They started out with 2. They have 3 horses on it now. So they are in compliance with our animal
Yes.
ordinance.
So really, we've had a couple of these throughout the years from different administrations where they've actually revoked them because of complaint base. They finally become so just a nuisance, and
Yeah.
as per our nuisance ordinance, and actually the actual the residential livestock ordinance, we can do that, but there again, it is complaint based.
Right. And the thing is what we're trying to do is prevent, it seems like it doesn't matter what ordinance you have on the books. If somebody, you can't think of everything. There's no way you can think of everything. But
Yes.
if there's someone that's going to think of something different that nobody thought of, there's
Right.
going to be someone.
You
that
just kind of
tries that.
assume that if somebody's going to have chickens in their backyard, they're going to have a house on it. They're not just going to go
Right.
put 3/4 of an acre and have a bunch of chicken and pigs and horses
Right.
and whatever else. Yeah, and then they can be in compliance with the ordinance,
Right.
but they've just turned a residential use into a agricultural use.
And it's not,
It's already
it's,
happened. They turned it into an agricultural
exactly,
use, so.
exactly. So we need to, do we have, I have an interest in changing that ordinance. We needed to find out if anyone else does.
Well-
What do you guys think?
I've dealt with this for 30 plus years. And I was in a county where you could buy land cheap, get an acre. And everybody come up and bought a land, then brought all their junk up there, brought everything up there and dropped it and then left. And so we had to create an ordinance, and we should have that you can't put anything on your land until you start building. You can't start building until you have the proper utilities on there. When you are building, then you can get a 6-month permit to put an RV there to build a home owner builder. And then once you get there, then you can start bringing your animals. But you can't take care of your animals if you're not living there on the property.
Right.
I'll bet you 99% of the time, it's not even their animals, it's somebody else. They're renting out their animals too.
That could be where the third horse came
Subleasing
from.
the animal.
And so they do that, well, I can make a little bit of money on my land out there. So I think we need to look at the bigger picture, not only animals, but whatever problems you have there, it becomes a junkyard, it becomes a place, well, so I told the guy, you can't put your RVs there, you can't put your motorhomes there, you can't put your cars. He licensed 30 cars and parked them on his property and insured 30 cars just to put them there. And things. So they find a way to try to get around it. But I
Yeah.
think we got to look at the big picture. Do we have an ordinance that eliminates them from coming and putting
We
their
do,
junk?
we do have a nuisance ordinance. It
Nuisance,
covers
yeah.
a broad stroke, but I don't know that it covers every one of those, what you're talking about, but we could look. we could
But you
definitely-
can put that and put it right in with it, because anybody with livestock knows you have to be there, because livestock will get out. You can put fences up, the horses will eat the fences or chew the board and everything. And if they're not there, taking care of them. And then somebody goes by and they haven't got any water, so then you're gonna get a phone call, the horses are starving, and things like that. And then the other animals come in, the dogs are a nuisance with the yard. And so it needs to be addressed that your landowner, be responsible, but you have to go through some responsibility and guidelines before you can start utilizing your land.
Yeah, especially on residential.
Yeah.
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 Right, that's, seems
And
obvious.
Horse shit, I have a house right now up in Payson Canyon. He's got 40, 50 acres and he puts it right next to my house and I've had nothing but flies problems all the time. And the flies are there and he's got 40 acres, but he put it right there within 10 feet of my house because the property lines are.
Dean, you're just popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just expanding
easier
on what Darren said. So I think that there's two ways to address this. So right now we have a nuisance ordinance, but it is not broad and sweeping enough to address what you're talking about. And I'm not aware of any other restrictions that we have that would limit you from putting anything on your lot before you build. So that would be like a lot broader of a concept. So that's approach one, or approach two is you could place more conditions on this particular conditional use. So you have to have a dwelling, you have to clean up manure, that sort of thing. It sounds like some of that's already in our ordinance, but it would be helpful to spell that out as conditions to this conditional use.
Okay. I've never seen them over taking care of any of, I see them over taking care of the horses, but I've never seen them clean anything up. So,
And I think you have a point. If they were living there, they'd probably be more motivated to do so.
Well, not just living there, but if they resided within the city boundaries, maybe
yeah.
that puts ownership and stewardship in that landowner's hand.
Yeah. So,
So you'd
Yes.
like to add it to the care and keeping of animals and livestock and then take a look at the nuisance ordinance?
I think you need to look at it, and see if we can.
yeah.
It's not in land use, so it will go to
Yeah.
city council, so we'll see what they say about it. But I can draft that.
It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't have to be in our residential ordinance then, right? Because there's nothing in our residential ordinance that talks about animals.
No, this covers everything here, and this is in Title 5.
Title 5 of the animal control.
Okay.
I do think it's a little bit different how we have the conditional use permits, but we don't have spelled out beneath, like within our residential zones, like what conditions are required for a conditional use. So that's a different approach we could take right now. I mean, it works the same, but it just is a little bit atypical in my view. So I guess the question is whether you want to amend it and put it in your livestock ordinance, or whether you'd like to set it forth as like a condition to this conditional use. And that might be something you don't have an answer for right now that we can
Yeah.
think about, but just two different ways to do it.
Yeah.
So.
I think the conditional use route makes more sense, just if you're thinking common sense, but we need to know more for sure.
But 90% of them won't even come in and get a conditional use. That's the problem for enforcement.
For enforcement.
They don't.
That's when you just have to enforce the ordinance, even though they haven't abided by it or even thought of it.
So I can present it both ways to the city council and see what they think.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. I just think we just need to be thinking outside the box and what our little town is going to be faced with in the next 10 years, and try and be proactive and ahead of the curve. So anything that we can do that prevents problems in the future, I think it's wise for us to do.
I agree, 100%.
Emily, I'll get you an ordinance or two. I've rewritten them enough times.
Clark County,
From what?
from Nevada.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that.
Oh, and one other question. Our planning commission procedures, where is that at?
I think we're waiting to finish city councils and the employee one, and then we're going to send them all to the attorney for review.
Okay,
So it's just waiting at the.
okay, it's just in line.
Yep.
Okay,
Exactly.
just wondering. That's good. Okay. I think that's it, unless anyone else has something they want to comment on. Okay. I'll take a motion
I
to
make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn?
Okay. And a vote?
Aye.
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 Okay, and it is 7:14.
I tell you.
Good job.